The phone call came 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was in my apartment, reviewing quarterly reports from my investment portfolio, when Mom's number appeared on my screen. "Melissa, sweetheart," she began, and I already knew from her tone that this wasn't going to be pleasant. "About Thanksgiving this year." I set down my tablet and waited. "Your father's business partner, Gerald Westbrook, is joining us for dinner. You remember Gerald, don't you? He owns Westbrook Development Group." "I remember," I said quietly. "Well, Gerald is finally considering bringing your father on as a full partner. This is everything your father has worked toward for 15 years. It's a life-changing opportunity." She paused. "Gerald has very traditional views about family. Professional success, proper education, that sort of thing. He's bringing his son Trevor, who just graduated from Wharton." I knew exactly where this was heading. "And you think I should skip Thanksgiving?" I said. "It's just this one year, sweetheart. Gerald thinks we're a certain type of family. Having you there would ruin everything Dad's worked for. You understand, don't you? It's not personal. It's just business." I looked at my laptop screen where the Westbrook Development Group file was still open. $2.6 million invested 18 months ago through my anonymous LLC Horizon Capital Ventures. Gerald had no idea his mysterious angel investor who had saved his commercial real estate project was his business partner's disappointing daughter. "I understand," I replied calmly. "You're such a good daughter. We'll do something special, just the three of us, next weekend. Maybe that Italian place you like." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a moment. Then I opened my email and typed a message to Richard Chin, my wealth manager at Silverton Investment Management. "Richard, please initiate withdrawal of all capital from Westbrook Development Group, effective immediately. Cite standard portfolio rebalancing as the reason. Ensure all documentation is processed by Friday morning." I hit send and set my phone down. Then I ordered Thai food and put on a movie. I'd always been the family disappointment. My older brother Marcus was the golden child. Harvard MBA management consultant, married to a lawyer, 2 perfect children. He wore tailored suits and played golf with clients. He was everything my parents wanted. Then there was me. I'd gone to State University instead of an Ivy League school. I'd majored in computer science and mathematics, which my mother thought was too technical for a woman. I'd graduated with honors, but without the prestigious name on my diploma, it didn't count in my family's eyes. After college, I'd moved to a small apartment downtown and started working as a software developer. My parents told people I was trying to find myself, or that I was working in computers, said with the same tone they might use to describe someone working at a gas station. What they didn't know was that I'd been teaching myself quantitative trading and investment analysis since my junior year of college. What they didn't see was that I'd turned my modest starting salary into something substantial through careful algorithmic trading and strategic angel investments in early-stage tech companies. By 25, I'd made my first million. By 28, I had $8.7 million in liquid assets and investments. By 31, which was now, I was managing a portfolio worth $47 million through my anonymous LLC Horizon Capital Ventures. I specialized in distressed commercial real estate and struggling tech companies with strong fundamentals. I bought in as a silent partner, helped stabilize operations, and either held for dividends or sold at significant profit. I lived simply. Same apartment, modest car, no flashy jewelry. I'd learned early that visible wealth attracted the wrong kind of attention, especially from family who had spent years telling me I'd never amount to anything. My parents thought I was barely scraping by. They'd stopped asking about my job years ago, having decided that my computer work was just a phase before I settled into something more appropriate, like teaching or nonprofit administration. Marcus knew I worked in tech but assumed I was some mid-level employee going nowhere. At family dinners, he'd occasionally offer to put in a word for me at his firm as if I needed his charity. I never corrected them. Their dismissal had become my protective shield. I'd first learned about Gerald Westbrook and his development company 2 years ago during a family dinner. Dad had been excited, explaining how he'd been invited to join Westbrook Development Group as a senior associate. If I prove myself, Gerald might bring me on as partner in a few years. Do you know what that would mean? 6-figure partnership distributions. Real prestige in the commercial real estate world. Mom had beamed with pride. Marcus had congratulated Dad and started offering business advice. I'd said nothing and quietly researched Westbrook Development Group that night. What I found was interesting. Gerald Westbrook had built a solid reputation in commercial real estate development over 2 decades. He specialized in converting struggling retail properties into mixed-use spaces: apartments, offices, boutique retail. Smart business model. But 18 months ago he'd overextended. He'd acquired 3 properties in the downtown corridor right before the market shifted. His traditional investors had gotten cold feet. The projects were solid, but he needed capital to weather the transition period. That's when Horizon Capital Ventures had made contact. Through Richard Chin, my wealth manager, I'd offered $2.6 million in angel funding. The terms were favorable. I wanted good returns, not to cripple him. In exchange, I'd requested quarterly financial reports and the right to withdraw capital with 30 days' notice if certain benchmarks weren't met. Gerald had gratefully accepted. The mysterious Horizon Capital Ventures had saved his flagship project. For 18 months, I'd watched my investment stabilize his company. The quarterly reports showed steady progress. The downtown properties were now 73% leased and generating positive cash flow. My investment had appreciated to approximately $3.4 million in current value. All while sitting across from Gerald at family dinners, listening to him and Dad discuss business, never once imagining that the quiet daughter picking at her salad was his guardian angel. The thing about being underestimated is that people tell you everything. Over the past 2 years, I'd heard countless details about Westbrook Development Group at family dinners. Gerald loved to talk about his business and Dad hung on every word, trying to learn, trying to prove himself worthy of partnership. I'd learned about Gerald's other investors, his debt structure, his expansion plans, his relationships with contractors and city planning officials. All of it filed away in my mind, cross-referenced against the quarterly reports Richard sent me. I'd also learned about Gerald's character. He was smart and hardworking, but he was also a snob. He judged people by their educational pedigree, their professional titles, their appearance. He'd made dismissive comments about people he deemed beneath his standards. He valued image over substance. And he valued my father primarily as someone who made him look good. A loyal employee who managed projects efficiently and never challenged him. The partnership Dad dreamed about. I'd seen the financial projections. Gerald could afford to bring on a partner, but he'd been dangling that possibility for 2 years without moving forward. It was a carrot he used to keep Dad working extra hours without extra compensation. I'd watched my father sacrifice weekends, miss family events, and stress over projects, all chasing a partnership that Gerald had no real intention of offering. But I'd said nothing. It wasn't my place to interfere, I'd told myself. Dad was an adult making his own choices. Until Mom called and told me not to come to Thanksgiving because I would ruin everything Dad's worked for. That changed things. Wednesday morning, Richard Chin called me. "Melissa, I've processed the withdrawal notification to Westbrook Development Group. As per the investment agreement, they have 30 days to return the principal plus accrued interest. I've cited standard portfolio rebalancing. The documentation has been sent to Gerald Westbrook's office." "Thank you, Richard. May I ask, is there a problem with the investment?" The last quarterly report showed strong performance. "No problem with the investment," I said. "Just time to move capital elsewhere." "Understood. I'll keep you updated on their response." I spent Wednesday working from home, analyzing potential investments in a struggling logistics company. Around 3 p.m. my phone rang. "Hi, Mom." "Melissa." She sounded breathless. "Something terrible has happened. Gerald received notice that his angel investor is pulling out. $2.6 million. He's devastated. Your father is trying to help him figure out what to do." "That's unfortunate," I said calmly. "The timing couldn't be worse. Gerald is so stressed. We're still having Thanksgiving tomorrow, but it's going to be tense. I'm so glad you're not coming. It would just be awkward with everyone so worried about business." "I'm sure it will work out," I said. "I hope so. Your father is beside himself. Anyway, I need to go help prepare. I'll call you this weekend." After she hung up, I returned to my analysis. Thursday morning, I went to my favorite coffee shop and worked on my laptop. Around noon, I ordered Indian takeout and brought it back to my apartment. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Parents' place is tense. Gerald's investor bailed. Dad's freaking out." I didn't respond. At 2 p.m. my phone rang. Dad. I considered not answering, then picked up. Hi, Dad. Melissa. His voice was strained. I know you're not here today, but I need to ask you something. Do you know anyone with investment capital? Anyone at your company maybe? Why do you ask? Gerald's angel investor just pulled $2.6 million. It's a disaster. The investment was crucial for maintaining cash flow during the lease-up phase. Without it, he might have to sell one of the properties at a loss, maybe even two. It could destroy everything we've built. That sounds serious. I know this is a long shot, but you work in tech, right? Do any of your colleagues invest? Do you know anyone who might be interested in commercial real estate? Gerald is offering excellent terms. I let the silence stretch for a moment. I'll think about it, I said finally. Thank you, sweetheart. I know this isn't your world, but any connection you might have would help. I need to get back. Gerald is making calls. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, Dad. I set my phone down and ate my sog painter. Friday morning, Richard called again. Melissa, I've received several calls from Westbrook Development Group. Gerald Westbrook himself called, then his CFO, then his attorney. They're asking if there's any way to negotiate keeping the capital invested. They've offered improved terms, higher returns, various incentives. What did you tell them? That Horizon Capital Ventures is reallocating its portfolio and the decision is final. As per the agreement, they have 30 days to return the capital. Good. Maintain that position. Understood. They seem quite desperate. The CFO mentioned something about having to liquidate properties if they can't secure replacement funding. Not my concern, I said. They'll figure it out. Of course. I'll keep you informed. Friday afternoon, Mom called. Melissa, your father is in crisis mode. Gerald is trying to find replacement investors, but it's difficult on such short notice. The timing is just horrible. She paused. Dad mentioned he called you yesterday asking about connections? He did. And, do you know anyone? I said I'd think about it. Sweetheart, this is really important. If Gerald's company suffers, it could affect Dad's position. He might not get the partnership. He might even lose his job if things get bad enough. I let that sit. I'll see what I can do, I said finally. Thank you. I know you don't really understand business at this level, but any help would mean the world to your father. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began drafting an email. Monday morning, I sent an email to Richard Chin. Richard, please schedule a meeting with Gerald Westbrook for Wednesday at 2 p.m. Location: Silverton Investment Management Offices, Conference Room B. Tell him that a representative from Horizon Capital Ventures will be attending to discuss the capital withdrawal and potential future investment opportunities. Do not reveal my identity in advance. Richard called me 30 minutes later. Melissa, are you sure about this approach? Completely sure. Gerald Westbrook jumped at the meeting opportunity. He thinks this is a negotiation to keep the funding. He has no idea. Perfect. I'll see you Wednesday at 1:45. This is going to be quite a shock for him. Yes, I said. It is. Tuesday evening, Dad called. Melissa. Incredible news. Gerald got a meeting with his angel investor. The mysterious Horizon Capital Ventures is finally willing to meet in person. They've never done that before. Everything's always been through intermediaries. Gerald thinks he can convince them to keep the money invested. That's good, I said neutrally. He's preparing his pitch all day tomorrow. This could save everything. I've been helping him pull together updated financial projections and presentations. If he can convince them, the partnership might still happen. I hope it works out for you, Dad. Thanks, sweetheart. I'll let you know how it goes. Wednesday at 1:45 p.m., I walked into Silverton Investment Management wearing a tailored navy suit, my hair pulled back professionally. I'd spent the morning reviewing every document related to the Westbrook investment. Richard met me in the lobby. He's already here. Arrived 30 minutes early. He's nervous. Good. Melissa, I have to say, in 20 years of wealth management, I've never seen anything quite like this. It's just business, Richard. He smiled slightly. Of course. We walked to Conference Room B. Through the glass wall, I could see Gerald Westbrook sitting at the large table, papers spread before him, typing frantically on his laptop. He wore an expensive suit and kept checking his watch. Richard opened the door. Mr. Westbrook, thank you for your patience. Gerald stood immediately, his hand extended, his professional smile in place. Then he saw me behind Richard and his expression flickered with confusion. Gerald, Richard said smoothly, I'd like you to meet the principal of Horizon Capital Ventures. This is Melissa Chin. He paused. Apologies. Melissa Reynolds. I stepped forward and extended my hand. Hello, Gerald. I don't believe we've been formally introduced in a business context, though we have met several times at my parents' home. The color drained from Gerald's face. You're Melissa? He looked at Richard, then back to me. Tom's daughter, Melissa? That's correct. I gestured to the chairs. Please sit. I understand you wanted to discuss the capital withdrawal. Gerald sat slowly, looking like he'd been hit with a brick. I don't understand. Your Horizon Capital Ventures. I'm the principal, yes. I established the LLC 7 years ago for private investment management. But you work in computers. You're a software developer and quantitative analyst, I finished. I also manage a $47 million investment portfolio. Westbrook Development Group represents approximately 5.5% of my current holdings. Gerald's mouth opened and closed. He looked at his presentation materials spread across the table, then back at me. Does Tom know? He asked finally. No. My investment activities are private. I prefer to maintain anonymity, which is why Horizon Capital Ventures exists. I generally find it more efficient when people evaluate my investments on merit rather than on their preconceptions about my age, gender, or family connections. Richard took a seat beside me and opened his tablet. Shall we discuss the withdrawal? Gerald seemed to shake himself. Yes, I prepared a presentation about why you should reconsider. The properties are performing ahead of projections. Occupancy is up. Revenue is. I've seen the quarterly reports, I interrupted calmly. The investment is performing well. That's not why I'm withdrawing capital. Then why? Gerald's confusion was giving way to desperation. If it's the returns, I can offer better terms. If it's the timeline, I can restructure. Just tell me what you need. I opened my own folder and removed a single sheet of paper. Last Tuesday, my mother called and told me not to attend Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' home. She explained that you were considering bringing my father on as partner, and that you have traditional views about family. She said that having me there would ruin everything my father has worked for because I'm not the kind of daughter who reflects well on a certain type of family. Gerald's face went from pale to gray. I was told to skip Thanksgiving so you wouldn't know about me. The disappointing daughter who went to state university, who works in computers, who doesn't fit your standards of professional success. Melissa, I didn't. You didn't know I existed in a professional capacity, I said quietly. You knew I existed as Tom's embarrassing daughter who wasn't worth meeting. The one who didn't merit a seat at the table when important people were present. Gerald opened his mouth but no words came. For 18 months I've been your anonymous angel investor. I saved your flagship project when your traditional funding sources abandoned you. My capital gave you the runway to weather the market transition. My $2.6 million investment is now worth approximately $3.4 million. You've made money. I've made money. It's been a good investment. Then please. But I don't invest in people who think I'm worthless. I don't fund companies run by people who judge others by their educational pedigree and professional image rather than by their actual capabilities. And I certainly don't financially support people who consider me too embarrassing to be in the same room with. The silence in the conference room was absolute. The withdrawal stands, I said. You have 30 days as per the contract. Richard will coordinate the logistics. Gerald's hands were shaking. Melissa, I never said those things to your mother. I never told Tom that you shouldn't attend Thanksgiving. I pulled out my phone and opened a recording app. I took the liberty of recording my mother's call. It's legal in this state with one-party consent. Would you like to hear it? I pressed play. Mom's voice filled the room. Gerald thinks we're a certain type of family. Having you there would ruin everything Dad's worked for. I stopped the recording. My mother didn't invent those concerns out of nowhere. They came from somewhere. Either you expressed those views or my father did, anticipating your views. Either way, Your company benefited from my mother's willingness to exclude her own daughter to protect a business relationship. Gerald looked like he might be sick. The partnership you've been dangling in front of my father for 2 years? I continued. I've seen your financial projections. You can afford a partner. You've been using the possibility as leverage to get extra work from my father without additional compensation. That's your business decision to make. But it tells me something about your character. I stood. Richard stood with me. The $2.6 million will be returned to Horizon Capital Ventures within 30 days. If you need to sell a property to raise the funds, that's your decision. I would recommend the Riverside Commons property. It has the most liquidity. Melissa, please. Gerald stood, his professional composure completely shattered. I need that capital. If I have to sell now, I'll lose money. It could damage my relationships with other investors. It could affect your reputation? I said. Yes, I imagine it will. Word travels in investment circles when an angel investor pulls out. People ask questions. But you'll survive. You're a capable businessman. You'll find other funding sources, restructure your debt, adapt. That's what professionals do. I walked toward the door, then paused. One more thing. I'd recommend not mentioning this meeting to my father. If he asks how the meeting went, I'd suggest you tell him the investor declined to negotiate. He doesn't need to know who the investor was. He's already under enough stress, worried about his job and the partnership you're never going to give him. Gerald said nothing. Happy Thanksgiving, Gerald, I said quietly. I hope it was worth it. Richard and I left the conference room. That evening, Dad called. Melissa, it's terrible news. Gerald's meeting with the investor didn't go well. They're pulling the money. He's going to have to sell at least one property, maybe 2. Everything we've worked for is falling apart. I'm sorry to hear that, Dad. Gerald is devastated. I've never seen him like this. He keeps saying he made a terrible mistake but won't explain what he means. Dad's voice cracked. I think the partnership is dead. I think I might even lose my job if the company downsizes. I let him talk, listening to his stress and disappointment. Dad, I said finally. Can I ask you something? Whose idea was it that I skip Thanksgiving? Silence on the other end. What do you mean? Did Gerald specifically say he didn't want me there? Or did you and Mom decide to exclude me because you were worried about what he'd think? More silence. Melissa, it wasn't like that. We just thought. You thought I was an embarrassment. That my life wasn't impressive enough to present to Gerald. That I would hurt your chances at partnership. Sweetheart, you have to understand. This partnership was important. We needed everything to be perfect. And I wasn't perfect enough. That's not what I meant. Dad, I've never asked you for anything. I've never needed your money or your connections. I've built my own life quietly. All I've ever wanted was for you to be proud of me, or at least to respect what I've accomplished, even if you don't fully understand it. I am proud of you. You told me not to come to Thanksgiving. He didn't have an answer for that. I need to go, I said. I hope things work out with Gerald. I hung up and turned off my phone. Friday morning, Richard called. Melissa, Gerald's attorney, contacted me. Westbrook Development Group will have the full capital amount plus accrued interest ready for transfer in 17 days. They're selling the Riverside Commons property at a small loss to raise the funds quickly. That was fast. Gerald wants this resolved. I think he's afraid of what else you might do. I'm not going to do anything else, Richard. I withdrew an investment for business reasons. That's all this is. Of course. He paused. Your father called my office. I sat up. He what? He called asking if Silverton Investment Management works with Horizon Capital Ventures. I told him we represent multiple investment clients and cannot discuss specific relationships. He seemed confused and desperate. He's trying to find replacement funding for Gerald. That was my assessment. I thought you should know. Thank you, Richard. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and thought about my father making calls trying to save Gerald's company, still chasing the partnership that would never come. Part of me wanted to tell him everything. To explain that his daughter, the one he'd excluded from Thanksgiving, was the investor Gerald had lost. That I had the money, the success, the professional respect he'd spent his whole life seeking. But what would that accomplish? It would hurt him. It would humiliate him. It would destroy whatever relationship we still had. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted them to understand that their dismissal had consequences. That you can't exclude someone and then expect them to help you. That professional success comes in many forms, and judgment based on superficial markers is both stupid and expensive. Gerald had learned that lesson. He'd lost $2.6 million in stable funding because he valued image over substance. Dad would have to learn it his own way. The money transferred to Horizon Capital Ventures on schedule. Richard confirmed receipt and closed the file. I didn't hear from my parents for 10 days. Then Mom called. Melissa, we need to talk about Christmas. Okay. Your father and I have been discussing things. We realize we made a mistake with Thanksgiving. It wasn't fair to you. We were so focused on impressing Gerald that we lost sight of what matters. What about Gerald? I asked. Is he still Dad's boss? For now. The partnership is definitely not happening. Gerald made that clear finally. Your father is looking at other opportunities. Gerald's company is downsizing after having to sell properties. That must be stressful. It is. But we're managing. She paused. Will you come to Christmas? We'd really like you there. Just family this time. No business partners. I thought about it. I'll come, I said finally. But Mom, I need you to understand something. I'm not a failure. I'm not an embarrassment. I've built a good life and a successful career. You don't have to understand all of it, but you do need to respect it. We do respect it, sweetheart. We didn't show it. We'll do better. Okay. Hey. Christmas at 2 p.m. I'll be there. I arrived at my parents' house at 2 p.m. on Christmas Day. Marcus was there with his family. Everyone seemed subdued. Dad hugged me at the door. Glad you came, sweetheart. Me too. Over dinner, Marcus talked about his consulting projects. His wife discussed her cases. Their kids showed me their new toys. I mostly listened, contributing occasionally. Then Dad asked, "How's work going for you, Melissa? We realized we haven't really asked about your job in a while." Everyone looked at me. It's going well, I said. I'm working on some interesting projects. Still at the same company? I freelance now. More flexibility. That must be nice. He seemed like he wanted to ask more but didn't know how. We ate in relative peace. No one mentioned Gerald. No one mentioned partnerships or Thanksgiving or investors pulling funding. Later, as I was leaving, Dad walked me to my car. Melissa, he said. I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I'm sorry about a lot of things. I think I've spent so much time chasing other people's definitions of success that I forgot to appreciate what my own daughter has accomplished. Thanks, Dad. I don't really understand what you do with computers and investments, but I can see you're happy. You're independent. You're making your own way. That's worth something. It is. He hugged me. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Merry Christmas, Dad. I drove home thinking about how people change slowly, how lessons learned are sometimes painful, how being underestimated is both a burden and a gift. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. New investment opportunity. Tech startup seeking $5 million. Interested? I smiled and texted back, send me the details. The world was full of opportunities. Some you invested in. Some you walked away from. The key was knowing the difference. I'd learned that lesson early. Gerald and my father were still learning it. But that was their journey, not mine. I had work to do.